Hi Asmon, it's your boy Artemus. And I think after seeing a few videos of you on the botting situations in different games that you are spot on that these companies just don't care. And since I was working on anti-bot measures at a social network with over 500,000 active users, I'd like to give you some insight why only two people are necessary to fight the botting problem. So you cannot only use people alone or systems alone to solve this problem. That is because if you throw people at the problem, it might seem in the beginning very, very obvious because the bots are just acting completely shameless because there is no threat at all to them. But as soon as you start cranking it up with personnel and the bots lose some every now and then, they just increase the amount of bots being farmed by a bot creation bot. So this is something that is not advised, because if you use people like labor force to solve something that is machine generated, you will always have the losing side, because problems that are created and pretty much streamlined and normalized by machines can pretty much very well be solved by machines. But there is one thing the human part in this thing is very good at, and this is detecting the bots and what they are doing and what their intention is, because this is the other thing that is behind the botting network from the creators of the bot. So you put the measures side to side to each other. The person on the bot network who has an intention is set against a person who is detecting the intention, and the bot network itself is set against another, like an anti-bot network. So you are fighting fire with fire. And how do you now approach this? So you have your support personnel, your maybe the game masters in-game. They receive from players reports about bots. They themselves are in the system. They see what is happening by botting. And with this information, they now have to go to the engineer and share this information with the engineer, because the engineer normally doesn't have time to look that long and that deeply into a system to find these things out. And those two now have to work out not only what they see what the bots are doing, but derive from that what is the actual goal of these bots. Because, for example, you have all these bots running around in World of Warcraft farming gold. This is something that is very hard to technically detect, because you'd have to analyze the movement patterns, and this would take maybe a lot of resources of the system. And so this is a measure that is very hard to set up, but on the other side, very easy to change. So it's not a good idea to go for this, even though for us human, it is perfect to detect this behavior, to find out who's a bot in the first place. But we only use that to find out the bot, and then we can watch the bot, because at some point, the bot has to make, let's say, a call to action. So he wants to sell the gold. He wants to put something in the auction house. He wants to maybe also some bots just want to put messages to drive people off the platform. That's what I was fighting against, for example. And you have to find this final call to action, because there they have to use an actual system that is very easy to track, that has rough values where you can act on. So then, when you know what the intent of the bots are, you take, as an engineer, the information that is available in your system. So you make some data analysis. By the tiny fraction of information that has been found out by a person, you can find out way more of these bots. You can make selections in a database, for example, to find out if there is more of these things happening, how big is the pool of bots that you now are unveiling and fighting against. And also, you might find other bots from other bot networks that don't act the exact same way, but in a similar way. So you might find even more of these bot pools. And most of the companies, they act with very, very simple, I would say outdated measures that are maybe not completely outdated, but at least not fitting to solve the problem. Like, for example, just having a blacklist, and then the support person just types in something into the blacklist and they think the problem is solved. But then the botting network realizes, yeah, okay, I can't use, or the people who's running the network, I can't use this word anymore by, as you said, by just trying different things. And oh yeah, this gets through, this doesn't. So I just changed this word, boom, we are back in. And these countermeasures of the botters, they usually only take 30 minutes and they are back on spamming. So this way is something that is pretty much useless to do. So now you prepare something that is not a generic system, but that is designed to act against the call to action that these bots want to take. You directly attack their pretty much farming ground, which is not the farming ground to get the gold, but farming the real life gold from the people, for example. And in the first thing you want to do is make this system as loose as possible. So if you identified how they are doing something, in the beginning there is no anti-measures, so it's very, very likely that they do not put any effort. So you can expect if you change something and you start fighting these bots, they will adjust within 30 minutes and get around the system. So you want to take a very, very loose approach. So every time they adjust, you can make the system stiffer and stiffer, or more, harder. Let's just say that. So they go in, they adjust something, and you thought ahead what they are doing. Because, for example, if they put out a certain message and you say, okay, we are going for this message and maybe similar messages to this one, then what are they going to do if we start fighting against not only a static blacklist entry, but we create a system that is able to detect similar messages? So the botters will not expect this in the first place. And now you're adding a new weapon, which is able to detect dynamically written messages. If they are similar, you got the bot. So they, in the first place, they think it's just a blacklist. And they will now lose a lot of bots. So that's the first wave. You're dropping the fire on them, but with very loose settings because they don't expect something to actually happen. And now the system is getting rid of a ton of bots. The botters stop their network and they test it now out, what they can do with a few tiny bots, because they realize that something is now happening finally. And they will realize, oh, maybe we had a tiny slot of character length of messages that was in the danger zone, and the rest was completely safe. And then they think, yeah, do we make a longer or shorter message? And we were sitting there thinking, what will they be doing if they want to put messages like driving people to these fake single platforms, these scam platforms? Yeah, they can only go to a certain short length of their messages, because going shorter, they cannot provide a proper text to the user and a link to make their call. And also they cannot go too big, because nobody would read these big messages. So they only have a certain window that we expected them to have. And we started with an even tinier one. So they just went out of the danger zone. And we knew in which area we can safely operate. So we just improved now the range. And what we got by that is, you have to know how these bot networks work. They create bots constantly, but they don't necessarily use all these bots constantly. Let's say they create 10 bots, they start using 9, and they lay 1 aside for emergency use. So if they now get hit, they need a new big pool of bots. And you want to get into these juicy sleeping bots. So they now activate a couple of them and you get them. So you lock everything by increasing the slot where they are hit, and then you get more information about the bots that are created like maybe half a year ago or even longer ago. And by that, you can probably find out the pattern of emails that they use to register these bots. So now you can add another measure. You can maybe create a regular expression to find out these emails, because in the beginning, you want to hit them really hard. You want to get rid of as many bots as possible to reduce the strength of their botting network, while at the same time having a system that is, for example, like I did, a self-learning blacklist, what it was, that then in the future will prevent them from even building up that amount of bots again. And then you hit them with the next flame strike. Boom. You let it rain down on them and you kill another couple of thousands of bots. And then they, after maybe the second or third time, of course, they start to get very, very anxious and they will not put in that many bots anymore. But that's not very bad, because now you gathered a lot of information about the vectors they were using and the type of actions they have. And you have to play this game for quite a long time. It is a cats and mouse game, as you always say. And the question is, how high is the effort for them? And as you always say, if it's not worth, if you kill them before they can actually make profit, it's not worth and they will stop. And that's exactly what we did. The most of the botting networks, they stopped at a certain time, and there was one that was really hard going into the botting thing, and they tried and tried and tried. It took 2 years after we also defeated that bot network, but it works in the end. And it is not very important to not find all the bots by an automated system, because if you have a few leftovers, these can be cleaned up then again by support personnel. So this is why you need only these 2 persons. This person can do the same thing. But there is one more thing that people don't think about. It's not only to detect 100% safe measures to find out who's a bot, because they will adjust. They will make their bots look more and more like real people in a way that actual people don't really know if this is a bot or not. So how do you fight the botting networks when they have adjusted to you going hard on them? And this is the second phase of the whole thing. So when you have detected these hard factors, they will change them and they will become more and more soft. And you can add further factors to detect the bots, but this means you also go into a way where you will also hit normal people that are just behaving the same way. And there is so many things you can do. For example, you can measure how fast is a bot or someone filling out the registration form. If it's inhumanly fast, you can already give them a flag. This is most likely a bot. It can be a user that is very, very fast and doing things, but yeah, you can take a lot of these measures. And the thing is, this is one very important thing. You can also make a security net. So if you have these loose measures that identify a bot maybe, but maybe not, if you have another factor or multiple factors that can tell you, okay, this is definitely a real person, this makes you more secure in applying this loose factor to everyone who is not identified as a real person. So you don't only have the bad thing factors, but you also have the good thing factors. And it's like 2 overlapping circles. So if a bad thing is overlapping with a good thing, you still can say that this is a regular player. And if you happen to have 1 or 2 bots that accidentally are identified as being a player, those can be cleaned up by support personnel, as I just said. This is the amount of bots they can care about. And the other big thing is you cannot watch every single bot on their own, because they have to sum up all these factors until you for sure can identify the account as a bot. And until then, they have already created too much damage and maybe profit for the botter. So what you have to do is you have to not fight the bots directly, but you have to fight the patterns, as I said before. So what does that mean? For example, for spam bots, the pattern is to drive people off your platform to their scamming websites. So you identify the new pattern of messages, for example, by a self-learning blacklist. So you identify a certain amount of similar messages that are spread out in a short amount of time, and then you flag this message as a bad botting message. Of course, this can happen by a player, but the players are saved by the security nets. So this message is now flagged as a bad botting message. For example, it can happen that a player is writing to another player, hey, I just received this message, and you don't want to have this player removed. And now that this message is identified as a bad message, and you are not detecting one-by-one character matches, but you are using algorithmic systems that detect similar messages to that. And for example, I found out that 85% similarity is pretty much the same message. So they just swapped out the name of the recipient. They said hello, hi, greetings, and stuff like that. They changed a little bit things by randomization of the message generator. And now that you found out the attack vector, automatically, after you have analyzed it with a real person in the beginning, then the system can detect this automated and take action. So every new bot that is coming into the system and is now using this message, we do not even wait for this bot to repeat their stuff a couple of times. They immediately get deleted. So you're reducing the amount of effort to find out which account is a bot from repeating this for every single account to only doing it on one account. You find out what they want to do, you detect it, and everyone who's doing the same thing gets immediately deleted, yeeted and deleted off the platform. And that is where the napalm hits the ground. And many of the botters will be defeated by doing so. And those who are still left, who are trying really hard, who put in much manual labor to get around these systems constantly, you have to get them by putting in constant adjustments. For example, what we did is we then created another blacklist that contains regular expressions. So we attacked them by literally specifically targeting the attack vector of this single botting network. And we did this, and I did this every single day. Every morning I get into the office, I looked into my system. What did the system find out? I derived the bots that were not detected by the system directly. And then I looked, what did they do? And I adjusted the vectors that were like a sniper targeting what they were doing. And yeah, so you can get rid of the major botting by doing these things. You have to have one person who finds out what they are doing. You have to go to the engineer. The engineer is then analyzing the network, thinking about what measures can be taken. You go with the loosest setting in the beginning, you stiffen it to gather more information, and on the fly killing a lot of them. And then you are attacking the intent of the bots and not the single bot itself. And those who are remained after this giant wipeout, those are the few you can also, as an engineer, target directly. And now you say, what about these giant games? So for example, I was in this social network with 500,000 active users, and there were quite a lot of bot networks attacking us from different scam single platforms and other scammers. And I and the other person, we did not even work full time on the problem. As I said, in the beginning of the workday, I sat there, looked into the systems. Maybe I was acting on this for an hour in my workday, and for the rest, I still continued programming on the platform. And it was even less effort for the support person. So you could pretty much say for a 500,000 user platform, it's an hour for me as an engineer. So you could have these two persons dealing with a problem for a multi-million active users platform. I'm pretty convinced about that. So that's the story about fighting bots. And I think it is crazy that all of these platforms that have so shameless, blatant botting, they obviously don't put any real effort, aka two people, into fighting the bots. And it's very sad. Maybe some of the engineers see this video and take something out of it. Also, I would say if someone has questions about that, I am live creating the game that you're seeing here in the background on Twitch at Artemus83. So feel free to join into the chat, ask some questions. I can answer whatever you want to know about anti-botting if you, for example, working in such a company. And the way that I thought these bots is, we had someone who should deal with that, but they were working just with these regular blacklists. And I thought that is not going to work. They get around it, and we cannot continue doing that. I have this thing, I want to implement this. It's only going to take a few days. It's a self-learning blacklist that I thought about it would work. And then they said, yeah, okay, try it out. And that's how I made my way into a bot fighting. So I made the initiative. I said, please let me test this. Let me implement this blacklist system. And it worked so well that I then had a green go to further fight the botting situation. And it worked. So you might not want to wait for your company to wake up, but make a call to action on your own. So yeah, thanks a lot. I hope this was okay, because English is not my native language, and it's actually the first time I'm making a video where I speak completely freely. And I hope you liked it. I hope it was a little bit informative of you. So feel free to join into my channel Artemus83. I do this game pretty much 100% live on stream. All the programming, all the art style, all the systems. We speak about what we are doing, what we want to achieve. So everything about the game is done live on stream. But I'm streaming in German, so if you happen to join in and you don't speak German, just say something in the chat and I will switch to English. So thanks again for listening, and see you maybe in my channel or at the next take of Asmongold. Asmongold, I hope this is some insight for you that you can work with, that you find enjoyable, interesting in best. And till then, have a nice one. Bye-bye.